My grandma and I, we used to do this before we go out and pick medicines. And it's just to show respect for the land and respect for the plants that we're going to pick, because the plants that we're going to pick are really medicines. She just put it under the eyes, and so I'll just pass that around. And this medicine is so mystic. It's so mystic. It's really powerful, and only a very few people have this gift, and they don't advertise themselves. They don't say I'm a medicine person or anything like that. Yeah, so it's really, really, really powerful. So I'll just say a little prayer. Yagatsta ducha jan hunzu ne ganin I ne na chaya jatne. Indi you atatele ne laone tabele ne laone. And it's an su de chu sawats an ajaten. Indi you say now that Creator, I thank you for another beautiful day. I just ask that you help us as we gather these medicines. This hasn't been done in years, since my grandma. That's a long time. I just ask that you guide us and do the right thing and pick the right plants and relearn, open our minds and our hearts so we can remember, because one day we're going to need what we picked. The days are coming, we're going to need it. I would say.
There's gathering etiquette when you're gathering plants for either medicinal or ceremonial purposes. It's essential that you show respect for the plant and give thanks when you take it and give something back. So that's what the tobacco or spit or even just good thoughts. It's important to be grateful to the air, land, water, and the plant community for all that they're giving to us. You ask permission from the landholders before you go in to see if you can gather there, and you ask permission from the plants. Say a prayer like Edie did before you go in, and cleanse yourself. And so we've done the charcoal. And if you're in a bad mood or anything like that, you shouldn't go collecting plants. So when you go into collecting plants in the forest, try and have good thoughts, be in a good mood, be in a good place. Even if you go in the bush, I found in a bad mood, you're not coming out in a bad mood, because you'll get grounded and it'll lift your spirits. Remember, only take what you need, share it with others, return back to the land the parts of the plants that you don't use. So we'll bring it back and we'll break it down and we'll save the parts we don't use. We won't throw it in the garbage, we'll take it out and give it back. Watch where you step so you don't damage any surrounding plants or life that we aren't going to be using. You should know how to harvest them and how to use them before you take them. In summary, it's all about showing respect and gratitude to the plant and the earth, the animals in the area. Make sure you're in a good mood and a good place to go collecting. It'll bring out the best of the plants. Don't over-harvest any certain area. If you come in and there's only a few of the plants there, leave them. Rule of thumb is 10%. If you come in, it's like a huge field of fireweed or something. My personal, and I've talked to a few other people, is you can take up to a third, no more, and then you have a third for you, a third for the plants, and a third for the other animals that are using it.
We look around us, we'll see that there's a lot of thistle out here. Thistle is a good blood cleanser. It's good for the liver. We can harvest some of the flowers to go into our teas, but it's very prickly, so I think that's their protective, and every plant has its chemical for protection, but those chemicals also heal our bodies. And actually, no, all thistles are edible, but they're a plant that has to be put in a kind of an alcohol, because an oil won't pull out, whereas because of the high A's, they need to be eaten with fat to be able to be absorbed. But the thistle It's very difficult to get the nutrients out of it unless you put it in alcohol and make a tincture, so it actually, the alcohol breaks down the fibers and breaks down the plant so it can pull out. And then you can add it into a salve. But as is, you can't.
So these are for liver, for cancer, for kidneys, for your immune system. They're good for lots of the stuff. So the plants that have the thistles and all the pokey stuff, they're the most healthiest and like beneficial plants for you, but they have the thistles so people don't over-harvest and
go crazy.
Take them. It's for their protection.
Yeah.
The thistles are really good. Stinging nettles are very good. Devil's Club, like all the pokey stuff has the most medicinal properties. And then these parts here, like Dory's actually fed them to me where you could cut the thistles off and cook them and eat them. The inside part that's not pokey.
Now red clover has long been known to be a female plant that helps us ladies, but it's also a cancer fighter, a very strong cancer fighter. And we'll be harvesting a little bit of that. What we'll get for those who didn't get as much clover, but we're going to bring some in tomorrow, is just to cut as close as to the stem. You can keep the leaves on if you want. We've got alfalfa, which most people would think is a plant for the animals, for the cows, for the cattle. But the alfalfa is like, it's kind of like a supercharged spinach. So it's super high in vitamins and minerals. And so we're going to collect some of the leaves and flowers to this plant. This will nourish your body. It will build your bones. You've never seen a sad cow, have you? Probably not. So this is a happy plant because it really does nourish your body. So this is a purple bench. This will cause a lot of problems with cattle. Does the flower not look like the same color as the alfalfa? But this is the plant I was telling you about that's poisonous, that's toxic. But it looks like the alfalfa flower is exactly the same color. And the flowers is not as big on this one, but when you get a really big plant, this can climb up on bushes, on trees. So this is toxic, and this is highly nutritious. Now we can see that we've got our fireweed, but the fireweed this year has bloomed probably a month in advance, because right now we should be just picking the flowers. And many of these plants, the flowers have fell off.
Cast iron.
Yeah.
Cast iron.
That's the way you say it. These plants are really good to eat. They call it the wild asparagus. When they're small, they taste like asparagus, and you can just snap them off when they're just like a half a foot to a foot. The whole plant is edible, and before we go back, I'll take some older stems, because you can still at this stage, you can take the stem, and I'll use the potato peeler and peel it, and you can still eat the inside of this plant. It's actually, it tastes a little bit like cucumber, and it's a little bit on the slippery side, and it's like a mucilin. It actually, it's one of the plants that come out when a forest fire comes through. So it's a healing plant. It heals the ground, but it also balances the ecology on the planet, but it also does the same in our body. So this is a plant that we want to harvest. So I'm going to take. Can I take you to show? So you can see this is a pretty tough looking one, but it's got little flowers, so we'll save those flowers. We're gonna demonstrate when I'm in there. When we take the flowers off, we just pull straight down. But we're gonna bring this back. Yeah, and they call it they call it asparagus, the wild asparagus. But when it's bigger and it gets woody, if you peel it off, you get past the woody stuff. Inside here should be a very tender, it almost tastes like a cucumber with a little bit of slime. But I think, well, maybe we can break it in half. You can, I can actually see this was also used as fiber and used for sewing and weaving and rope. But we'll see if we can take a little bit off, and we'll see who's our tester here. On a roll. And actually you can, yeah, you can actually eat these right here, the long stems here. They usually, can I take of you? You can eat all this here, but it's more tender when you go to the top. Okay, who's chewing on that? The fireweed, we'll pull it straight down. And these long little portions here, we can clip them off. They can go in, and they can go in the tea as well, because they're actually quite sweet. Now this is our red willow. It's in the it's actually not a willow, it's in the dogwood family. But this again is one of our cancer fighters, one of our, peeling the bark off the tree. I had a little bear cub in my yard yesterday, and he was eating the flowers. But you can see that the flowers are almost gone. Some are coming out and others are gone. And this is the goldenrod. Edie, I don't know if you've got a name for this one in the language. But this is one, I find this is the emotional plant. When the COVID hit a couple of years ago, before COVID hit, I would go out to harvest and I could find one or two. But when COVID hit, this plant just went everywhere. And if you look around over there, just huge piles, and probably coming up the road here, it's just everywhere. Well, this plant is mostly for the kidneys and the liver, but it's a plant that deals with emotions, because they say that our emotions get stuck in our kidneys. And this plant makes a beautiful tea. We use the flowers and the leaves, but it also cleans out the solid organs like the liver and the spleen and the pancreas. It filters out all the particles. Goldenrod, Sol Diego it's called in. And so this is a plant that I use in almost every single tea that I put together, because many nations and many other practices like Chinese or Vedic, they believe that a lot of our sicknesses are caused by our emotions. And so when someone's depressed and they're not eating right, so this plant is it's a plant that will clean out our solid organs, and it also will brightness. And you know, a lot of the herbalists look at the plants, what they call this doctrine of signature, or signature of doctrine. So what's bright and yellow outside? Well, it's coming out, the sun. And so plants that are really vibrant in bright yellows are usually the plants that are high in the vitamin D's, which is our sunshine. And so they improve our mood and they help us feel better. But this plant, because I believe that most of our sicknesses are caused by trauma, caused by held in emotions, and caused by past experiences that have maybe hurt us. So I always make sure I have a lot of that plant in every formula I put together. And so what I do is I always remove the leaves that are a little bit maybe bitten by the animals. They're not as desirable. And so this one looks a little bit dusty, and that's why we're going to have some people washing. And so what I usually do is grab the top, and thank you plant for allowing us to harvest you, and I just pull down. And then there's our leaves. And then you can even get a scissors. It's like an apple. If you get a little rotten spot, you don't have to throw away the whole apple. You can just cut out the part that's not desirable. And so, and then we'll have to separate. And then what we'll do is with the scissors, we'll be cutting the flowers. Another way that I do this, I actually don't separate them when I'm at home, but because we're on a time factor and we don't, I just tie one or two together, and I tie it in a with string, and then I hang it up to dry. Then all the water comes down and then it dries out that way. And then when you're able to actually break when it's dry, you're actually able to break it, that means that the rest is dried. If it's spread and it's on one layer like that, but what happens is as long as the stem is on them and it has the most moisture, then it prevents them from drying because it's feeding through that main stem. That's why we usually cut them off the stem. I always do that with my mint. I dry it with the stem. And you can just pull it. It's probably easier than cutting it. If we look out on the field there, we'll see a yellow flower. And this flower is called a sow thistle because the leaves have thistles on it. This has 4 times more antioxidants than a glass of wine. It has what's called anthocyanins, and it's the bluish colors you get in berries and huckleberries and cherries. So the yellow ones, their Latin name is Sanchez, and it has 12 times more antioxidants than black tea. So this is a healing tea. It is in the Asteraceae family. It looks just like a dandelion. Now, just like the dandelion, you can use the flowers. The leaves on it are prickly. That's why they call it a sow thistle, and it likes growing with its buddies, the other common thistle. Now the roots can be used as this, as well as dried and used as a coffee substitute. So we're gonna collect some flowers and we're gonna collect some leaves. If you wanna have a look at the leaf here, if you wanna come in, it's a little spiky on the leaves.
Oh yeah.
Now the milk thistle, you'll know because it's bright, marbly white in it. But this is a common thistle, totally edible. You just get a scissors and you cut off the edge. Who wants to be brave and try a thistle? So can we take a view? I'm just going to take off a little bit of the spikes. Now anytime a dandelion has a flower, then the leaves are going to go bitter. That's why when you pick the leaves, you should pick the leaves before the flower comes out, because the energy of the plant starts in the roots. It's great for the liver. Remember we talked about the signature of doctrine? That the bright yellow. So this plant is high in vitamins A, B, D, and K. Everything that has chlorophyll, which is green, is high in vitamin A and vitamin C. So this would be a liver plant. Usually they say that if it causes pain, it's good for pain. And so that's why when you look at the thistle, it has, if you try touch it, or a devil's club, it's very painful, but it's good for pain. So because I'm not using it again, I thank the plant, I thank you, and I'll just bring it back to the ground, and so it can break down and go back into the ground. And because it's in the dandelion family, it's not a plant that you can actually dry, because its survival is just go right, within 3 hours, 4 hours of picking, it will go to seed. So it's a plant that is on a time limit. This again is in the Asteraceae family. It's in the dandelion. So this little guy down here looks like another dandelion, and this is called salsify. And again, it's in that dandelion sunflower family. Totally edible. Many First Nations would eat the little pods before they come out. Yeah, salsify. Yeah, salsify. Yeah. And you'll see it'll grow this high, and it's the one that has the big puff ball about this big. Like a dandelion, like the big giant one. And that is very tiny because those plants are usually really huge. Believe it or not, when the leaves of a raspberry, strawberry, raspberry, blueberry turn color, they're higher in antioxidant than actually the berry.
The green ones with no spots.
With no spots?
Yeah.
That's the main.
There's a lot that have they're like purple spots. They're starting to come in. You can see them like this.
Oh yeah, on the edge there.
There's a very little one. Those kind of spots in green.
A raspberry plant and the leaves are used as tea, and it's probably one of few plants that a woman can use through her whole pregnancy. It will strengthen her uterus, it will balance her hormones, and it will even help with her with labor. And so it's a tea also great for the digestive system, but it balances out your liquids in your body. And so when a woman when she's pregnant, sometimes she gets swollen feet and hands. So it's a plant that is mother friendly, but it's a woman's plant. It is helpful for men as well, but it's a plant that's very good for menopause, very good for PMS, and for even for the young ladies who are it's taking too long for them to have their periods, or they have their periods too soon, this is a plant that will help balance out the hormones and the menses. Yeah, it's because we can't take anything that's off color. It has to be firm, and it has to, you can really see the medicine on the underground, underneath, it's really, really white.
Okay.
And so once we get to a color, it fades out.
Okay.
So you'd only want to take ones that are firm.
Okay.
But because there's only one plant, unless we can find another plant, then I would prefer just to leave it. That Kobe, it's a very strong flavor, but it's a strong healant. Now the yarrow root is extremely good for you as well. It's just as powerful. Remember that all medicine, the medicine is in all parts of the plant, not just the leaves and the flowers, but also the stem and the roots. For the yarrow itself, the many First Nations groups would dry the flower and pound it into powder. So if they were at war, or if they were hunting, they had an accident, they had a big cut, they would put the yarrow, they would carry a pouch of it in a powder and put it directly on the wound, and it would stop the bleeding instantly.
Oh.
It's also a great fly repellent. You can take some off and rub it on your skin, and it's a repellent. Some nations would take it and pick them and carry them, and when they had their campfire at night, they would put the leaves in the fire as well as the flower, and so it would burn off and it would keep the bugs away.
Oh.
I think we discussed, this is the horsetail. So one plant can contain up to 35% silica. So this is kind of what my hair looks like in the morning. So silica is a form of calcium. And so the First Nations people would dry this and they would drink it in teas, but they also would they could brush their teeth with this. They could also rub it on their nails because of the high content. And because of the high content, once it gets bigger, when it's a fingerling, which I brought with me, we'll show when we're inside, the silica crystallizes. That's why you can't eat this. You can drink it as a tea, but you can only drink it for a short period of time because the silica will build up in your kidneys. And so we don't want a kidney stone. So if you want to pick a little bit of horsetail, try and find some nice ones, that would be great. So how do we know what kind of tree is this? 3 ways. If it's spiky, it's spruce. If it's soft and furry, it's a fir. And if it's long and pokey, it's a pine. So go ahead and grab this, like right here, and tell me what it is. From just what I just told you, right in the middle. Yeah, so that's a spruce. Now spruce, the First Nations people would, they go on a hunt and they would come back and they would be low on their vitamins. One of the highest vitamin A in the forest. Usually they say take from the sunny side so it grows faster, or take it from the lower limbs. But then you got to watch where you're taking it. So here it looks like it's a lot less, and then this side's a lot more. The tree grows from the top and it grows from the tips. So if you're going to take something, take it from inside, and don't take it where you're going to stun the growth. When the First Nations people do the tips, they're just growing out and they will pick from certain parts of the plant. They won't take too much because then the plant will be stunned in its growth. Okay, can we take a view? Thank you. Now spruce, pitch, my grandma used to make gum for me. And if you look in the tree, you can see the pitch right here. And this is, if you had, what's that, halitosis? Which is a bacteria, by the way. I always tell the kids who brushed their teeth this morning. And if they put their hands up, I say, okay, no lying. Then one will put their hand up. So even if you were to take the gum, even if you were to take one needle and put it in your mouth and chew it, I always say that was what kills the sugar bugs, because it's antibacterial, antiviral. And so that little piece, well, if you've got bacteria, I said if your child won't brush his teeth, at least give him some needles to chew, because spruce is the strongest. Fir is actually quite beautiful, and so is pine. So we'll take a little bit of them. Early, everlasting. And so, can I take a view?
Kind of like baby breath.
this is in the Asteraceae family, but these are for smokers. And if you look in your lungs, you have the little sacs in your lungs. What they would do is that they would dry this, and they would put dry mint and put it together and smoke it. And it will heal your lungs from cigarettes. But it also does the same if you dry it and drink in tea. So we've got a little batch here, so we can
Grab some?
Yes, let's grab some. Perfect. That's absolutely perfect.